Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, a doctor of chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, on this beautiful Wednesday, December 11th, right here from Lubbock, Texas, on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM, Lubbock Christian Nation. Thank you guys on the radio for listening to our show. If you're streaming us on 987radio.com, thanks for that too. And all you guys on social media, at the Rock Health and Wellness Centers, on the Walk by Faith Facebook page. We're out there. We're on YouTube. We're on X. And we're coming to you. We're live, just like we are almost every night, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7, right here on the radio and on social media. And we just talk about health. So you guys listening to us, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And I hope you had a great day. We did at the Rock. We had some cool things happened today at the Rock. Had some new patients, had some great conversations, really, really good conversations. It's kind of cool how it kind of evolves over periods of time. The longer you take care of somebody, the more they get it, the more they kind of start to ask some really deep questions about what's going on with their health. And we see enough patients and we can see more patients, but we always have enough time to visit when we need to. So there's days that we get, and we don't spend 30 minutes talking about this stuff, but every once in a while we'll have a little bit of time in the way that the day ebbs and flows, and we can have some of these. And we had some great ones, and that's kind of what there's just going to be some clinical conversations is going to be the show tonight. About what we're doing. But before we get started, I just want to, for all of our listeners in Littlefield, and we broadcast this show on our Littlefield Facebook page. For you guys that are in Littlefield, we're going to be at Trade Days this Saturday. Our team is going to be there. We're going to do balance plate assessments and right eye assessments at the Trade Days this Saturday. So if you guys want to come by our booth, you come by, we'll get you scanned, and then I'll have a one-on-one phone call with you to let you go over anything that we found in the scans. The balance plate is really a cool device. It's an assessment that we have in the office that we can use to assess your balance from the three different ways that we talked about it. We talked about balance last week on the show, where we talked about the vestibular system, the visual system, and the proprioceptive system. And so we've talked about that a lot here lately, because all of a sudden I've had a bunch of vertigo people, and I'm not exactly sure why. It's very strange, but because it's not that common. It's not that common to have so many vertigo people all at once. And the joke in chiropractic is you got to be careful what kind of book you read, because if you read a vertigo book, then you'll end up with vertigo patients. If you read a shoulder book, or go to a shoulder seminar, you'll end up with shoulder patients. So you kind of got to be careful. Well, I haven't done that. I haven't read a vertigo book, so I don't know where they're coming from, but we've had a bunch of them. So we've had lots of these conversations about balance, and the balance plate is one of the ways that we can assess how you're doing with your balance. So if you guys want to come out to Littlefield, if you guys in Littlefield want to come out, if you got anybody, parents, whatever, we're not charging for the balance plate assessment. You can just come to the table and sign up, and our team will get you scanned. And if you would like to take the right eye test, we're going to be out there as well. So you can come take the right eye test. And if you got anybody in your classroom, if you got any of your kids, you think any of your kids have any sort of reading problem or vision problem, or do you think they have some sort of dyslexia problem, you can have them come out and take the test, the reading test for the kids. And the right eye technology is super cool, and you guys might enjoy that. So that's for our Littlefield people, or anybody in this area that wants to show up at the Trade Days in Littlefield at the community center, and we'll be there pretty much all day. I think between 10 and 2 would probably be the optimal time for you to come by. So just wanted to make that announcement for anybody who's over there, and I'll get a post put on the Facebook page so that you guys in Littlefield can know what's going on. If you're in Lubbock and you want to do that, then just let us know. You can text the office 806-794-0400, and you can send us a text and come by the office, and we'll do that for you. We'll do the assessment for you as well. So I'd be glad to do that for you. If you're worried about balance and you want to know how to fix it, because you can test it. You can test your vestibular system in your ear, your canals in your ear. You can test your visual system, and you can test your proprioceptive system, and then you can create a fall. We do a fall risk assessment. So if you're worried about, you're starting to lose your balance, then we can do that fall risk assessment on you, and then it'll tell us which one of those three systems needs work, and then we can create a program for you that creates a solution for that problem. And because you don't want to fall. Falling is not falling is something that we all do because gravity is undefeated, but you sure don't want to fall and break your hip. And you don't want to fall and break your neck or get yourself a concussion or all the negative things that go with falling. So if we can help it, we sure don't want to do that. And the other part about falling, just while we're on the subject, is a lot of times we think we fall and break our hip, but in real life, what they really think happens is that you break your hip and fall, for older people. So breaking your hip comes down to an osteoporosis type of thing, which comes down to leaching of calcium from the bone and not absorbing enough bone and not building enough bone and not having enough weight-bearing exercises. And then you'll get yourself right back into this idea of what do I do about it? And then you do healthy things. So I'm going to say that because that leads me right into one of the conversations that we had today. So if you guys want to come to Littlefield, get you scanned. If you want to come to the office and get scanned, we'd be glad to do that for you. All right. That I didn't mean to segue into one of the conversations, but it is a perfect conversation to segue into. So I had a patient ask me today, hey, let me ask you, she did, it was really cool because she wasn't sure exactly how to formulate the question. But so it took her 2 or 3 tries to formulate the question, which I thought was great because she was really trying to communicate it properly. And she's like, what do you think basically is about hearing loss and the brain? Do you think that my brain could have anything to do with my hearing loss? And she was talking about, is there something we can do? She was wondering if the neurofeedback that we do in the office might be able to stop her hearing loss. And I said, I don't think that's the answer to that. I sure wouldn't. In the chiropractic world, we don't treat hearing loss. We try to detect and correct interference in the nervous system, wherever that might be, and whatever downstream thing that might be affected usually gets better. But I said, you're probably going to have to talk to a master neurofeedback guy. I'm not at that level yet. But it was a great question because what she was wanting to know is she's losing her hearing. She's starting to recognize that she's not hearing as well as she used to hear. And she wants to do something about it because it's bothering her. And so it makes total sense to me. Why wouldn't you want to do something about it, right? Well, let's talk about it. And I've got a picture for you guys on social media. And I just think this is really cool. And let me find out where this picture comes from. Braincart.com. Braincart.com is where I'm getting that, so I want to give them credit for it. But so this is a visual, so you can kind of get a picture of what is happening when you're hearing something. What is actually the mechanism that's taking place when you're actually hearing something? And where can you have problems with this whole hearing pathway? And is there anything that we might could do that would help your hearing? So a lot of times I don't think we really think about um, the neural pathways that go along with the function of our body, right? My wrist hurts. So we just focus on the wrist. We don't really think about the wrist-brain connection. We don't really think about the brain function in the wrist. We just think about the wrist. If you say my knee hurts, you usually just think about your knee, but you're not really thinking about the knee-brain connection. Why would my knee not function properly? What is my hamstring doing? What is my quad doing? Is my hamstring tight and my quad weak? What is happening in my hips? What's going on with my foot? You know what I mean? It's like there's connections in all of our body, but there is always nerve connection. And those nerves end or start in your brain. So your brain is a part of everything. So when you think about hearing, you may just think about the nerve mechanism of the. You might even think of nerve. You just might think of your ear. That's probably more true. You're probably just thinking of your ear. So no, it's not just your ear. It's the nerve that's connected to the mechanism in your ear that detects these sound waves, these waves that are hitting your eardrum, and those waves are now being sent through a nerve pathway. And this nerve pathway is now going to go into the brainstem. And you can see on the picture, so we got information going from this cochlear ganglion in the ear that is now firing into the brainstem. And now look at the different places that it's going to synapse or connect to, that it's going to fire into the brain. So you're going to go from the brainstem, and then you're going to get other parts of the brainstem itself. They're going to fire all the way up into the thalamus. They're going to go out into the auditory cortex of the upper brain itself. You're going to get all of this combination. You're also going to get firing patterns that you're going to get the muscles of your neck involved, because you're going to get the motor cortex involved, and you're going to get the cerebellum involved, because if someone claps their hands really loud behind you, it's going to startle you. You're going to turn your head. Now you're going to get your visual system involved. And what actually happens is your ear to your, and this is the vestibular oculomotor reflex, the hearing is going to fire quickly to your eyeballs, and your eyeballs are going to turn first. So you hear that clap, and what happens? The first thing that moves are your eyeballs. Your eyeballs start to move, then your head turns together. So there's a connection that's going on inside your brain. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm saying is, the question that was presented to me is, does chiropractic help hearing loss? Can my brain be related to hearing loss? And I'm like, well, not if there's damage out here in the mechanism of the ear where you actually damage the nerve. Like if you've damaged that eardrum in some form or fashion, or you've damaged that nerve that's out there in the ear in some form or fashion, no. Like if you've damaged the nerve, it doesn't matter, because it's not that impulse of sound is no longer making it into the brain stem. If you damage it out here at the periphery, it's not reaching the central nervous system. It's not reaching the brain stem. So now it doesn't really matter, because there's nothing we can do about it. But if that mechanism in your ear is working just fine, but now you've started to lose these little areas of the brain stem, or the pathways that are firing, or what's going on in the thalamus, or what's going on in the auditory cortex, now we got a chance to make things better. Now we can actually do stuff. We can actually fire through those pathways. We can fire other things that fire through we can use tools to try to rehab the pathways that are firing through the brainstem up into the cortex. We can use movement and use adjacent pathways to try to influence the way that works. There's some things that we might be able to do to help, right? We're working on, and that goes the same thing if you've got Parkinson's, or if you've got the vertigo that we broke down last week about how you're getting that input from the ear. You can see that this vestibular part is connected directly to the same nerve. It's the vestibular cochlear nerve. So it's all coming in through that nerve bundle that's going into the brainstem, and you're getting the visual and you're getting the proprioception. That's all coming in centrally. And then it's getting dispersed throughout the brain. And it led us into, what was super cool about the conversation is it led us into what would you do about it? Okay, let's just say, for example, that maybe we had my ear mechanism is working just fine. What about the rest of it could we possibly improve? And if you were going to improve it, how would you do it? And now, I know as dumb as this sounds, do wellness things, right? Do wellness things. That's what we would do. We would try to get fuel and activation to the area, right? We want to get nutrients. We want to get blood supply. We want to get nerve supply. We want to have activation of the brain. We want to stop any insult to the tissue itself. Stop attacking the tissue with a bad environment. What do I mean by that? Get your 6:3 ratio balanced, right? Quit eating seed oils like we talked about, right? Take your fish oil. Make sure you have the nutrients. Fuel and activation. Fuel means nutrients. Make sure you're getting the nutrients to the tissue. It's like that. I know it's so boring. It is kind of boring. It's like, dadgummit, he's going to say the same thing. You mean to tell me that my hearing could get better if I got my body healthier? If I got my brain healthier? What would Dr. Brednison say in the end of Alzheimer's about how to reverse Alzheimer's? What's he going to say? He's going to say, get fuel and activation to your brain cells and stop attacking your brain cells with some sort of toxins. Last night we went over artificial sweeteners in that drink. And I want to make sure that everybody understands from last night's show. Look, I don't care if you drink the drink or not. I'm not bashing the drink. I'm not saying anything positive or negative about the drink. I'm looking at the ingredients and I'm answering the question that was asked of me, would this be considered health and wellness? And it's like, no, it wouldn't be considered. And this is the same thing. It's like, what should we do? And what Dr. Brednison's going to do, if he's going to reverse Alzheimer's, is he's going to try to get the body into an environment that's congruent with health. So he's going to try to make sure that we're doing those things so that we can get it better. And he's reversing Alzheimer's in patients. The end of Alzheimer's book, Dale Bredesen, he's reversing Alzheimer's in patients by getting their brains back in an environment that's congruent with health. And that's what I would say to the same person under the same circumstances if they're losing their hearing. But understanding, I want to make it very clear, I'm not saying that I'm treating deafness. It's not my game. I had a patient asked me today, would I take an X-ray of her lungs because she's been coughing for 3 or 4 weeks, and she thinks she might have broke a rib. And it's like, would you take an X-ray of my ribs, and would you take an X-ray of my lungs? And I said, yes, I'd take an X-ray of your ribs, but I'm not taking it. I'm not going to take an X-ray of your lungs. And I'll talk to her tomorrow because she's coming in. But I'm like, that's not my scope of practice. That's not. I wouldn't know what to do. I'd have to send them off, and then if they came back positive, I'd have to send you to your medical doctor anyway. And I, in my practice, just skip that step because it's not my game. I'm not treating hearing loss. What I'm saying is, here is the neurological pathway of the way your ear fires into your brain so that you hear something. What you're hearing right now from me, which is just amazing. I mean, it's freaking amazing, really. I'm sitting in my office by myself, and I'm speaking into 2 different microphones because I can't figure out how to speak to one. But I got one microphone right here that is my voice is somehow, look at this, like you can hear it when I run my hand between my mouth and the speaker. Somehow it doesn't disrupt the sound that travels and hits this speaker. Like, what is this? What is this little speaker right here? Like, how are you hearing me through this little stupid thing? That's amazing. My voice is going through this wire right now. Sometimes you just got to be simple enough to enjoy life, right? My voice is going through this wire, which is going through this little box. And this little box right here is not attached to anything except wirelessly through this little antenna. And then this antenna is sending it through one of these boxes on my desk. And then that box is sending it through another box on my desk. And then that box is sending it into my Mac Mini right here. And then my Mac Mini is sending it through a wire. That's really crazy, man. Y'all ever thought about that? You ever thought about it's sending it through a wire that's connected to the internet on the wall, which is going back here to the back of my office, which is going out into some fiber, which is going to some place. I got no idea where that's going. I think it's going to space. I think it's going to a tower someplace. I don't know. And then it's bouncing off of that tower. And then it's hitting your tower wherever you might be. You might be in Oklahoma tonight listening to this show. You might be in Chicago listening to this show, or Japan. But somehow that is flying through the air and it's hitting another tower. And then that tower is doing all of that mechanism back through your computer or your phone or whatever. And then it's spitting my voice out of your phone or your radio, whatever it is you're listening to. And now my voice is bouncing off of your eardrum. and then I know it's silly, but you just think about it. It's like, holy crap, is that really happening? And then it's hitting your eardrum and it's going into your brainstem. Then it's going into your brainstem and then it's firing like a symphony inside your head. And that's what you're thinking right now. You're thinking it's firing in my head. It's driving me nuts. This whole conversation that you're having is probably giving you a headache. And you are listening and understanding, at least understanding the language. Most of the words I say, you're at least understanding that they're English, and you're carrying on. And then you're processing that, and then that is going to fire up into your upper brain where you're going to see what you think about it and define it. And what are you going to do about it? And you're going to be like, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. I like listening to what he's saying. Or you're going to just be like, dude, enough. And you're just going to switch. You're going to just scroll on to the next thing and get off this and move along, right? Tell me that's not amazing. That's amazing. And we didn't even start with where it originated inside my head. We just started with it coming out into air. If we had a problem somewhere along the way that we couldn't get the sound to work right, we would start working on all the wires and all the way along the way, right? If we had a problem inside of our head where we couldn't like it wasn't working right, we might want to go to work inside our head. And what would we do? We would try to make those cells be as healthy as they possibly could be. That's what we would do. And then if we started working on how can we keep those cells to be as healthy as we possibly could keep them, what would we do to do that? Would we exercise? Would we want to say, you know what, maybe I should exercise, and then if I exercised, I might be able to keep those cells in my brainstem healthy. And then I might say, well, I wonder if I ate good quality food versus poor quality processed food, I wonder if those cells in my brainstem would be healthier if I ate good quality food than if I ate poor food. And then if I got some sleep tonight, and then if I got the right liquids. You see what I mean? It's like when you start working on health, you're working on all of you at the same time. You're working on all of your cells simultaneously when you're doing health. And when you're being unhealthy, you're working on all of your cells simultaneously as well. When we make those unhealthy choices, we're making our hearing worse. And then we end up getting old and we can't hear. So, hey, we got to take a break. Let's take a break. We'll give you guys a break. I'll get your brains to calm down just a little bit. We'll come back and I want to go through some of these same things with vision and with heart function as soon as we get back from the break. You guys stick with us. Okay, I'm going to try to say I'm going to try not to say many words during the break just to give you a chance, just to give your brains a chance to recover. It'd probably be nice. It would probably be nice for you to have an opportunity to recover and just have a little silence. Sometimes you start talking about stuff and you just get tickled. I get tickled. I just think it's so funny because it's just like, man, we don't ever stop and think about just what in the heck is happening. We start complaining about stuff. I had a girl come in today. She works with autistic kids, and she wore a T-shirt, and she said it's something like "Everyone is a genius." It was on, and it had like a puzzle-looking things on her shirt. It had something to do with autism or something like that. I didn't read the whole shirt. I just read that deal across the top. And at first, I was going to have a smart aleck comment about it, but then I started thinking about it. I said, "Yeah, if you really define it properly, everyone's a genius. If you just thought, I talk about this sometimes. If you just thought about how awesome you are." If you just stopped for just a second in your busy day and all the things that's going on and all the small things that aren't right about you, and you just stopped for just a second and thought about how awesome you are. Like if you can hear me right now, just the mechanism that we just went through, the pathway that we just went through that happens inside your head in order to give you the opportunity to hear these words all by itself is one of the most amazing systems in the universe. Like it is cooler than anything else you've done today. Whatever you did today and you think is the most awesome thing that you did today can't even hold a candle to the awesomeness of your nervous system. we get stressed out about stuff. Right? All right, I got to get us back on. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are back and we're live, and we just went through, I hope you guys can hear me on the radio, but we just went through the pathways of hearing because That was one of the questions that got given to me tonight. So let's just look for a second while we're on this subject, because there's a couple more subjects I would like to cover tonight before we get done with it. But let's just take for just a quick second the pathways of vision, right? And just look at what the optic nerve does. And this doesn't have them all the same exact way. It doesn't kind of break it down exactly the same way, but it breaks it down enough to kind of see that when we see an object. Now, that same thing that we just talked about with hearing, we can talk about that same thing with vision. And we can say, okay, look, where is the mechanism that's the problem? Is the mechanism out here in the lens and out here on the outside of your eyeball? Okay, I don't know of, I know some nutritional things that I have been told helps with those. That's what standard process does. Standard process helps us with that. If you've got macular degeneration or different things that's going on in your eye, there's some supplements to support that. But your doctor, cataracts and all that sort of thing, your doctor's going to help you with those. But here's the mechanism, right? It's like we got lenses and we got lights and we got rods and cones and all this sort of thing that's happening in the eyeball to give us colors and shapes and that are hitting, and it's flipping it over, and now it's running it into the brain. And it's running it through different parts. This optic tract, this optic chiasm, we're moving itself back. You've got, just like we talked about, you've got the vision that's going to the cerebellum. You get that involved. You've got this all firing back here to the back of your head where your primary visual cortex is. You actually do have eyes in the back of your head. Yeah. They said, what do you think? You got eyes in the back of your head? Yeah, that's where my eyes go, right? Fires. And I don't have any eyeballs back there. I can't see backwards, but that is where the vision goes, is in the back of the head in that occipital lobe. And then from there, here it goes again. That whole beautiful symphony that fires all the way back up from the back primary visual cortex all the way back up into the frontal lobe. You're going to get it. You're going to get information going from the visual system all through your brain. Amazing. Amazing right there. Well, what about heart function? What about our heart? Is our heart all by itself? That's one of the things that caught me into chiropractic right there. The conversation that my brother-in-law said, would you let me take a pair of scissors and cut the nerve that goes from your brain to your heart? He would ask that question. Well, what do you mean there's a nerve that goes from my brain to my heart? What are you talking about? I need to go see a cardiologist. I have a heart problem. I need to go see a cardiologist. Why would I go? What is a chiropractor doing talking about a heart? Why do you think I need to go see a chiropractor when I need to go see a cardiologist? Now, look, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a cardiologist. I think it's a brilliant idea that we have a cardiologist, and to get your heart evaluated, that's great. But why all of a sudden is everybody getting an ablation? Like it's the new trend. We went through the whole phase where everybody got their tonsils took out. And then we got over that, and then we went through the whole phase where everybody was getting their gallbladder removed. And then it's like, don't hear about that quite as often as you used to. It's like, shoot, when I first started chiropractic, everybody getting a gallbladder taken out every week. It's like, just taking out gallbladders. It's like, well, okay, now all of a sudden, I didn't hear about ablations 20 years ago. I didn't hear about ablations 15 years ago or 10 years ago. It's like all of a sudden, everybody needs an ablation. What is an ablation? Maybe you do need an ablation, but I'd like to know why. Why do you need an ablation on your heart? Why is it that you need to burn the nerve off? Well, you need to come in here and burn that nerve, and because that nerve's not firing properly from top to bottom of your heart or whatever it might be, right? Why is that happening? What is the mechanism that's causing all these people to need ablations? That's just a side note, because I really just wanted to show the pathway. When my brother-in-law said that, would you let me take a pair of scissors and cut the nerve that goes from your brain to your heart? I just looked at him and I was like, There's a nerve that goes from my brain to my heart. Like what does my head, what does my brain have to do with the way that my heart functions? And it's like, well, that's the power supply from the nerves that are coming from your brain that are coming to your heart. And if your brain, I mean, just look at where they are. If you look at just these little synapses, and that's a simple little picture, but here's your vagus nerve, parasympathetic, decrease heart rate, sympathetic cardiac nerves, increases heart rate. So you've got these different nerves that are firing into the brain. Parasympathetic, vagus. Remember when we talk about getting threatened, what did we talk about yesterday? We talked about Mark Gastineau confronting Brett Favre, right? We talked about that whole confrontation. I hope you guys went and watched it last night and looked at it. Well, if you haven't, go watch it tonight. Just go to YouTube and look at it and watch the mechanism of that take place. And what happens when you get threatened? You'll notice it. You might be sitting in your chair watching it happen and your heart rate goes up. Because all of a sudden you feel threatened because you watch it and you feel the threat that goes along with it. And how does your heart rate go up from something that you see from your eyeballs? Right? Not that you took off running. You didn't just take off running and all of a sudden your heart rate went up. No, that's not what happened. You visualized something which made your heart rate go up. What's the mechanism behind that? There's a neurological mechanism that's going on behind that, right? Which is firing through your eyeballs into your brain stem, your back out your cranial nerve that's going to your heart, or firing down through your spinal cord and the sympathetic supply to the heart. Whichever way you want to evaluate it, you're getting nerve to heart function. Remember what we showed the picture last night? I think it was last night, of Christopher Reeve. We took Christopher Reeve and we showed that picture of a person who has nerve function versus a person who doesn't have nerve function. Well, you and I are dealing with subluxation on a lower level than Christopher Reeve. We're dealing with subluxation, which is just interference in the nervous system from the brain to the body, which is caused from physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress, which is what you would solve if you were trying to be healthy. Does that make sense? Like, I hope so. I hope that makes sense. You can't live 1 second without your nervous system. And we could go through every part in your body. We could go through from your toenail to the top of your head. We could go through every single part of your body. We talked about immune system today. I busted out laughing. One of my patients, she said her stepdaughter, she's like, I just can't she is so sick. She's sick all the time. She's like, she's had COVID like 5 times. And I was like, well, who's her chiropractor? And she said, oh, I don't think she believes in chiropractic. I just busted out laughing. I was like, well, okay. How's that working out for you? You know, it's like you had COVID 5 times. Like what is wrong with your immune system? Right? And how does your immune system work? And do you have an immune system without a brain? You know what killed, all right, think about this. Do you have an immune system without a functioning nervous system? What did Christopher Reeve die from? Does anybody out there know? Do you know what Christopher Reeve died from? An infection of a bed sore. Think about that for a second. Why would a guy that's paralyzed from C3 down, from his neck, you want to know where C3 is, just go to your earlobe and just move down about 1 inch on your neck. That's about where C3 is. And you could go down to C3 and then just think that that's where he broke his neck and everything below there stopped working. If everything below C3 stops working, why would he get an infection from a bed sore? You know why? Because he didn't know he had a bed sore. Why didn't he know that he had a bed sore? Because he had the nerves that were going into his skin and his soft tissue were not being able to tell his brain that he had a bed sore. Why does a diabetic person have, why is diabetic neuropathy such a big deal? You guys know anybody that will not heal? Their feet, diabetic people who have a sore on their foot that will not heal. Why is that? Do you know how much time is spent working on that sore to try to get that sore to heal, and how little time is spent working on the connection between that sore and their brain? They'll spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and hours and time trying to get that foot to heal, and they'll never consider what's going on between the brain and the foot. You guys will, because you get it, right? You get it. It's like, yes, we could go through every single part of the body, and we could say, okay, let's I don't even know if I should do this on the show. Let me look at this right quick. Let me see. I don't even know if I should talk about this subject, but maybe I should look it up before I to see exactly, because you guys have figured out. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that subject tonight, but I might look into it a little bit. But my point of it is that every single cell and tissue in your body is under the control of your nervous system. And if we were going to try to get that to be healthier, then that's what we would do, is we would work on physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress, because the nervous system is connected to the tissue, and we want both ends of the nerve to work. That's why I'm such an adamant person about burning nerves. Like, let's just imagine in this particular picture itself that this is your shoulder and not your heart, right? Let's just imagine for a second that that's your shoulder or that's your low back, and they say, hey, we should go in there and burn that nerve. And it's like, wait a minute. We're going to burn the bottom of the nerve where it's connected to the shoulder. Yeah, it's going to make your shoulder feel better. But okay, that's fine. But where's the other end of the nerve? Where's that nerve going? Where's that nerve coming from? And where's that nerve going to? And if we're going to burn that nerve, because sensory information fires from the shoulder into the brain, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to burn that nerve, and we're going to lose that sensory information into the brain. What about the other end of the nerve? What about Botox for you ladies that just need your wrinkles to go away? What about Botox? Where does it? Let's imagine this is your face, and these are your lips or your eyebrows, right? What are we going to do? We're going to paralyze with botulism toxin. We're going to paralyze this tissue. And what about the other end of the nerve? No one talks about that. We don't even think about it. We don't even think about it on a daily basis. It's like, what do you mean? Where's the other end of the nerve? Well, where's that other end of that nerve? It's in your brain. So now you're going to deaden. Let's get a shot to kill. Let's burn that nerve. I think we should burn it again every 3 months. We should burn it again, and then burn it again in 3 more months. Well, let's just see if we can completely atrophy where that nerve is going to in the brain. Why would you want to atrophy your brain? It doesn't even make any sense, right? What if we solved the problem of the pain? Now, if you're at the end of the line and there's nothing you can do and there's no options whatsoever, fine. I'm all aboard. burn all the nerves you can. In my dad's spine, when at the end of his life, I wish he'd have burned them all. They tried it; it didn't work. But if you're that bad, I'm all for it. I'm not against it. But until you get to be that bad, I think it's a bad idea because those nerves are there. So hearing, vision, heart, all the parts of your body, you want to keep those tissues as healthy as possible. Okay, let's move on. Just a quick reminder about depression and anxiety in this time of year. Depression and anxiety in this time of year is higher. One of my girls said that to me this morning. She's like, I am noticing over the last 2 or 3 years this November, December, January pattern of being overwhelmed with the opportunities that I have in my life. And it was, and I was like, okay. And she said, it's not, I said, she's like, I want to learn how to turn that off. And I was like, you're wanting to know how to turn off opportunities in your life? And she was like, no. I want to learn how to turn off that pattern of being overwhelmed by the opportunities in my life. And I was like, okay, now we can do that. Now we can do that. That's something that we could do. And I said, and where would I start? I would start with making sure she's taking her vitamin D. And then, are you moving your feet? Are you exercising? Are you getting enough movement for that? And it's you guys, if you're dealing with depression right now, ask yourself, how did you do over Thanksgiving break? Did you get too much processed food or sugar? Okay, that'd be one thing that you could ask yourself. And then the other thing is, are you getting enough movement from your feet? Have you been sitting down more lately? And because you're sitting down more lately, you have a tendency to eat more processed food or food, period. So those two things go hand in hand with depression and anxiety. It's December 11th. If we're in December 11th and your depression is worse than it was in July, you're like, I was fine in July and August and September, and then, man, just lately, I've just been depressed. Okay, that makes total sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it make total sense for all of us? Because we know that we're losing our steps. We got to get our steps back. So if you're dealing with that, so she was talking about what can I do? And I was like, the first thing, move your feet, right? Get yourself walking. Do those things that you would do to stay healthy. The second thing is try to make it curious. Instead of letting yourself getting overwhelmed by things, see if you can make the unknown curious. It's unknown. You got opportunity, it's unknown, but now instead of getting fearful, you just get curious. It's like, okay, I wonder how this is going to work out. I'm not sure, but I wonder. Because curious in the brain is right next to known. You're just one little old step from getting into the known part of your brain, which gets you parasympathetic, which gets you calm and relaxed, right? So that's what I said to her. I said, well, move your feet. Move your feet, take your vitamin D, and then define it. We kind of went over that a little bit last night about definitions. How do you define things? Do you define things right now as opportunities, or do you define them as challenges, or what is it how do you define your world? What are you defining? You're defining your status in life. You're defining your family status in life. You're defining how we're going to get through the end of this year. You're establishing what's going to happen at Christmas and what are we going to do, and all those sort of things. The more we can make them curious, the better off we're going to be from a physical health standpoint. Because if we don't make them curious, what they end up going to is fear. And then fear kicks off this whole pathway again, and then here we go. So she asked me that question, and I thought it was a great question. So we talked about it. That's what we did. And when I said, take your vitamin D and move your feet, she was like, oh. And which is kind of the same thing as the hearing person. I was like, stop doing the things that make your cells function worse. Remember? Like, don't do the things like too much alcohol or any, right? Stop that stuff. Like, you don't want to do that. It goes in the wrong direction. Okay? So, anyway, that's enough. Another thing that I had, someone asked me not too long ago about CoQ10. And there it is, right there. CoQ10, I'll just read just a little bit about just what, if you guys, do you take CoQ10? Do you not take CoQ10? Should you take CoQ10? I'm a pro guy. I'm pro CoQ10. If you're interested in knowing a little bit about it, there's a book, Oxidative Stress, Disease, and Cancer, that comes from Roswell Park Cancer Institute, New York, USA, and edited by Singh, Imperial College. It's 2006, and it kind of breaks it down. But here's just some just highlighted points. Okay, CoQ10 controls these functions: participation of the electron carrier in the mitochondrial respiratory chain. So now you're making ATP in your mitochondria. Participation in extra mitochondrial electron transport. Endogenous synthesized lipid-soluble antioxidant. Regulation of mitochondrial permeability, transition pore. So this is mitochondria, and organ systems require varying amounts of CoQ10 for optimal function. In this order, the heart, about 120 micrograms per gram of tissue. The kidney, 65, the liver, 60, the muscle, 40, the pancreas, the thyroid, the spleen, the brain, the ventricles, intestine, the colon, the testes, the lung. The commonly used cholesterol-lowering medication, the statin, inhibits this big long word. Thus, the statin not only reduces synthesis of cholesterol, but also of CoQ10. And so if you're on a statin drug, you definitely should consider this CoQ10. Studies show that statins affect CoQ10 metabolism. Studies indicate that statins treated patients have mitochondrial dysfunction. Studies indicate that statin-treated patients have mitochondrial dysfunction, most likely induced by CoQ10 depletion. Now, let's just stop on that for just a second, because we just have a couple minutes left. But let's just stop there for a second and understand what we just said, because statin takers have CoQ10 mitochondrial dysfunction. So there's your cell, and there's your mitochondria. And what does your mitochondria do? It makes the ATP, which is the energy of the cell. So what does CoQ10 do? CoQ10 is involved in that whole process. So what does a statin drug do? It inhibits CoQ10. It stops it from making it. So what happens? This mechanism stops working properly, and we end up with mitochondrial dysfunction. We turn the power off to the cell. We turn the power off to the cell, then the cell dies. If cells die, then tissues die. What tissues? Maybe brain tissues. Maybe the brain tissues that cause you to have hearing loss. Maybe the brain tissues that cause you to have vision loss. Maybe the brain tissues that cause you to have heart function. Maybe the heart tissue cause you to have heart function. Maybe the muscle tissue, maybe the kidney tissue, and now you can't get rid of your toxins, all that sort of thing. And then it's like, okay, we can map all that back to a cholesterol drug that now is disrupting your CoQ10. And why did you take the cholesterol drug in the first place? Because you had high cholesterol. And why did you have high cholesterol? Because you had holes in your blood vessels. And why did you have holes in your blood vessels? Because you're not eating a proper diet. Most of us, a couple people are different, but most of it comes from the fact that we weren't eating the diet. So what would we do to solve that whole problem so that we didn't have to take statin drugs? We would start eating like we're supposed to. It's like simple. It's like simple. That's why some of us can be chiropractors, because it just comes back to the same old thing. Eat well, move well, and think well, as our man Dr. Chestnut says. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're out of time. I will be back tomorrow night. I thought I was supposed to go to a Christmas party, but I blew that whole thing because the Christmas party was last Thursday. And Leslie and I have been planning this, going to this Christmas party. I messed it up. I apologize to the people at the Christmas party. I messed that deal up. So I don't have a Christmas party tomorrow night. So I'll be right here with you guys. So you guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Let me know if I can help you.